So after I made the previous video that shows how to map a 2D UI to a 3D object, I was really curious, could I interact with the UI on the 3D object? And it was a little bit trickier than I had thought it would be at first, but I did get it working, so I'm going to pass that on to you. So basically here's the setup. Is I added a static body with a collision shape, and this collision shape just matches the 3D object that it's on, which is just a plane obviously, and then I made the thickness really thin. That may not matter too much, but I just wanted it to be as close to that thin 3D plane as possible. And so then what I did is I added these anchors, if you will. And what we're going to do is use these to find out what the normalized position is when we hit this 3D collision shape. And how we're going to hit the collision shape is with this raycast 3D. And what we're going to do is we're going to have the raycast 3D look at wherever the mouse points to. So let's go ahead and switch over to the 2D UI, and I'm just going to run this. And what we're going to do is whenever we click button 1, it should say button 1 pressed, and likewise button 2 pressed for the other button. In the 3D scene, what it looks like is like this. So we see it's working. And now I'll show you the code, how I got this working. First thing is we can just look at these two functions. These are just signals for button 1 and button 2. And now this code is what's on this camera here. And you see we have all these references. We have the raycast 3D, the top left, bottom right, a reference to the sub viewport, and I have a debug object. Actually, I'll show you how that looks real quick. I just wanted to make sure that this debug object was pointed exactly where my mouse was. And since that's right, I have that turned off. So let's go ahead and look at the process function. I think we're just going to ignore this debug object just because it's not really all that important at this point. So the first thing we do here is we grab the mouse position from the viewport. And then what we're going to do is we want to project the position of the mouse position through this camera. So this is a camera 3D function to call. And this right here just says 10 game units away from the camera. And so basically this will give you the 3D position of where your mouse is pointed. And now we want to grab our raycast, which is this, and we just want it to look at that world position for the mouse. And then here what we're doing is we're seeing if the raycaster is colliding with this collision shape right here. If it is, then we want to do all this logic here. And obviously, if it's in your own game, you're probably going to need to make sure that the collision mask and the layer for this collision are something other than the rest of the collision for your game if it has physics. And that way you're not raycasting at something else in your scene. Alright, so the first thing we want to do is get the hit point of where the raycaster hit on that plane. And then what this is doing here is this is basically taking the X global position of that top left anchor here. Let's go ahead and look at that again. So it's up here, the bottom right is down here. And what this is doing is it's taking the X position of that top left anchor and then the X position of the bottom right anchor. And then we're getting a normalized point based on where the hit point was. So just to make it easy, let's say this is at 0 and this is at 10 and this is at 5. Since that's halfway between these two, it will return 0.5. Or let's say that this is 0, this is 10, and this is 2.5, then it will return 0.25 because it's a quarter of the way from the top left X position to the bottom right X position. And then we do the exact same thing for the Y. And so now what we want to do is get a simulated mouse position. And we get that by multiplying this normalized position by the sub viewport size. And then again for the Y. So in this case, the sub viewport is 512 by 512. So let's say the UI.X is 0.5, so this would be at 256 pixels. And then let's say the UIY is 0.25, so it would be at 128 pixels. And then we're creating a new mouse input event. And then we're setting the position of that mouse event to our simulated canvas or UI position. We want to set pressed to this action that I set up in the input manager, and this is just for if the left mouse button is pressed or not. So if it is, set that to true. If it's not, set it to false. Set the button index to left, set the button mask to left. And then what this does is, since we don't actually see anything in this sub viewport when we're playing the game, this will basically force this event into that sub viewport. And so this is what actually allows us to click. So I hope this video helped you. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button and subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this, and I hope to see you in the next one. Thanks, bye.